I never imagined I'd be sitting down to write this. Yet here I am, hoping that by putting it into words, maybe I'll start to understand it. My wife, Claire, and I met back in college. We were both 22 then, full of ambitions and big ideas. Claire was studying business while I was working through an engineering major. From the start, we clicked, falling into dating almost immediately. By the time we graduated, we were inseparable. Our wedding was on a gorgeous spring day, one I can still picture as clear as anything. Claire walked down the aisle looking like everything good in this world wrapped into one. We were both 25, thinking we were ready to take on life together. We settled into a comfortable rhythm, supporting each other's careers as best we could. Claire eventually took over her father's small business, and I started with a major engineering firm. Life was good, and it seemed we were happy. We got a cozy little house in a nice area and, before long, had 2 daughters, Ava and Lily. Claire's business flourished, and I climbed the ranks at work. Our careers were on track, though it left us both incredibly busy. When the girls arrived, we figured one of us should be home to raise them. Since Claire's business was booming, we agreed I'd stay home as a full-time dad. It wasn't easy to make that call, but we thought it was best for the family. For years, we were a happy team, me managing the house and kids while Claire built up her business. It was a balancing act, but we stuck together through all the ups and downs, or at least I thought we did. Then, about a year ago, things started shifting. Claire was getting home later, acting distant, and picking at me for not having a real job. The comments stung, especially since we'd settled on our roles long ago. I brushed it off at first, chalking it up to work stress. But more warning signs started cropping up. We hired a gardener, Ryan, to keep up with the lawn. He was a young guy, polite and easygoing. I didn't think much of it when Claire occasionally chatted with him, but over time, those conversations stretched longer, and she seemed almost thrilled after their talks. Little things caught my eye: a light touch on his arm, shared laughs, or the way she looked at him. One day, I came home early and saw them together in the garden. She was laughing, with her hand resting a bit too comfortably on Ryan's shoulder. They didn't notice me, and I didn't say anything, but something twisted inside. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Claire acted overly affectionate, almost as if she was compensating for something. I started watching closer, hoping I was just overthinking it, but it became painfully clear that Claire was a bit too friendly with Ryan. That was when the doubts started gnawing at me. Doubts that would eventually uncover a truth that broke our family apart. After that first suspicion, I found myself looking for more clues. I felt guilty for it at first. She was my wife and I wanted to trust her. But her actions kept raising questions I couldn't ignore. Claire's wardrobe suddenly shifted. She used to favor practical, comfortable clothes, but now she came home with bags from high-end stores, filled with clothes that felt way too flashy for her usual routine. When I asked about it, she brushed me off, saying she just wanted to refresh her style. It didn't sit right with me. Then there was her phone. Claire used to leave it lying around the house, but now she kept it with her constantly, even taking it to the bathroom, something she'd never done before. One night, I noticed her texting someone late, her face lit by the screen, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. When I asked who she was talking to, she brushed it off as work and put the phone away quickly. The last straw came one Saturday. I was in the kitchen making lunch for the girls when I heard Claire laughing outside. Looking out the window, I saw her standing close to Ryan, her hand lingering on his arm a little too long. My smarkack dropped. I needed answers. When she stepped into the shower, I grabbed her phone, hands shaking as I scrolled through her messages. Most were harmless, but then I found a string of messages from an unsaved number. The texts were flirty, mentioning plans and excitement to see each other. My chest tightened as I realized these were from Ryan. I took screenshots and sent them to myself, needing proof, and returned her phone without a trace. My mind raced with questions and rage. How could she betray us like this? That evening, Claire was uncharacteristically cheerful, humming as she made dinner, almost like she had nothing weighing her down. I watched her, struggling to match this woman with the one I'd loved and trusted for years. At dinner, I forced myself to act normal, though inside, I was burning with anger. After putting the girls to bed, I finally confronted her. I asked her straight out about Ryan, about the texts. She went pale, looking like a deer in headlights before denying it all, calling me paranoid and dismissing it as innocent conversation. But her voice cracked, and her eyes couldn't hide the guilt. I didn't push further that night. I needed time to think. I spent the night on the couch, my mind storming with betrayal, anger, and sorrow. I couldn't believe this was happening. That Claire, the woman I'd built a life with, was lying to me, and there was no denying it anymore. The cracks in our marriage were growing wider, and I feared it was only a matter of time before they shattered us completely. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with a heavy heart, the quiet around me unsettling. The house was still. The girls were still asleep upstairs, and I knew I couldn't just let this slide. I had to face Claire and get to the truth of what was happening between us. When she came downstairs, humming as she brewed coffee like any other morning, I felt my anger simmering beneath the surface, but I kept myself steady. I had to approach this the right way. After breakfast, I asked her to sit down. She gave me a curious, slightly wary look but took a seat across from me at the kitchen table. "Claire, we need to talk," I started, struggling to keep my tone even. "About what?" she asked, her expression turning to feigned innocence. "About you and Ryan," I said, watching her face closely. Her expression hardened immediately, and she folded her arms. "Oh, here we go again. I told you there's nothing going on." "I saw the messages, Claire," I said quietly, pulling out my phone and showing her the screenshots. "This isn't something I'm imagining." She barely glanced at the screen, her face twisting into a smug smirk. "Are you seriously going through my phone now, Luke? That's pretty low, even for you." "Don't turn this on me," I fired back, my patience thinning. "Just explain those messages. Be honest with me." Claire sighed, rolling her eyes as she leaned back. "Fine, you want the truth? Yes, I've been texting Ryan. But it's just harmless fun." "God, Luke, it's not like I've slept with him." "Harmless fun," I repeated, feeling a surge of disbelief. "You think I'm an idiot? You're flirting with him, Claire. And on top of that, you're lying to me." "Why?" Her eyes sparked with frustration. "Because I'm bored, Luke. You're always around, always in my face. No ambition, no drive. You just sit around pretending to be the good guy while I work my ass off." I needed an escape, and Ryan was there. Anger flared in me. "So, this is my fault now? I'm to blame because I stayed home to take care of our kids while you focused on your career." "Oh, spare me the martyr routine," she scoffed. "You loved quitting your job. It gave you a free pass to be lazy and act like some kind of hero." I was stunned, blindsided by her cruelty. This wasn't the Claire I had known, the woman I thought I loved. "Don't you see what you're doing to us? To our family?" She shrugged, her gaze cold and dismissive. "The family will be fine, Luke. The girls will be fine. You're just blowing this way out of proportion." "Blowing it out of proportion?" My voice rose, raw with frustration. "Claire, this is an emotional affair happening right here, under our roof. Do you even care about us anymore?" "Of course I do," she snapped. "But maybe I need more than just this boring life we've built. Maybe I need something that makes me feel alive." "And Ryan makes you feel alive?" I asked, the bitterness unavoidable in my tone. "Maybe he does," she shot back defiantly. "But that doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I want to leave you." I shook my head, struggling to process her words. "You can't have it both ways, Claire. You can't keep lying and expect everything to stay the same." She narrowed her eyes, leaning forward, her voice sharp. "Then what do you want, Luke? A divorce? You're going to throw everything away over some texts?" "I don't know what I want right now," I admitted, my mind racing. "But I know this can't keep going. You need to decide, Claire. Either you end this thing with Ryan, or we figure out how to move forward." Her face hardened, full of resentment. "Fine, Luke. I'll stop seeing Ryan. But don't think for a second that this is over. You pushed me to this point, and I won't forget it." She stormed out, leaving me alone at the kitchen table, reeling from the argument. It was as if the small cracks in our marriage had turned into massive chasms, and I couldn't see any way to bridge them. Claire's betrayal went far deeper than I'd ever imagined, and her refusal to take any blame left me feeling utterly hopeless. How could we ever come back from this? After she left, I sat there staring at my cold coffee, a flood of anger, hurt, and dread crashing over me. I couldn't help but worry. What would happen to Ava and Lily if this ended in divorce? How would they cope? How would I? The rest of the day passed in a daze. Claire kept her distance, shutting herself in the bedroom or taking long drives to avoid me. I tried my best to keep things normal for the girls, though inside, I was falling apart. That night, after the girls were asleep, I waited for Claire to come home. When she finally walked through the door, I knew we needed to talk again. "Claire, we have to talk," I said as she came into the room. She sighed heavily, dropping her purse on the table. "Really, Luke? Haven't we talked about this enough?" "No, we haven't," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "We need to figure out what's happening here, for the girls' sake, if nothing else." She collapsed onto the couch, looking both annoyed and exhausted. "Fine. What do you want to talk about?" Taking a deep breath, I searched for the right words. "Claire, I can't keep living like this. The lies, the deceit. It's tearing me apart. And it's not fair to Ava and Lily. They deserve better than parents who can barely stand each other." She rolled her eyes, a hint of sarcasm in her voice. "So what's your solution, Luke? Divorce? Is that where this is going?" "I don't know," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of it all. "But I know this can't keep going. We can't just pretend everything's fine when it's not." Claire's gaze softened, if only slightly. "And what about the girls? What happens to them if we split up?" "That's my biggest fear," I said, the words feeling raw. "I don't want them to lose their family. I don't want them to feel like they're caught in the middle. So we keep pretending for their sake?" she replied, a trace of bitterness in her tone. "No," I said, shaking my head slowly. "I don't want to keep pretending, but we have to find a way to make this work, to keep the damage to a minimum for the girls." Claire sighed, rubbing her temples as if to ease away the weight of it all. "I never wanted it to come to this, Luke. I never wanted to hurt you or the girls." "Then why did you do it?" I asked, my voice getting sharper. "Why lie to me? Why flirt with Ryan, knowing how much it would hurt?" She looked down, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I don't know, Luke. I was lonely. I felt trapped. I needed some kind of escape. And Ryan, he was just there." "That's not an excuse, Claire," I replied, feeling my anger spike again. "You could have talked to me, told me how you were feeling. Instead, you chose to lie and betray me." Her eyes filled with tears, and she whispered, "I know. I'm sorry, Luke. I really am." "Sorry isn't enough," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "We can't keep living like this. It's not fair to any of us." Claire nodded slightly, wiping away a tear. "So, what do we do now?" Taking a deep breath, I faced the hard truth. "We get a divorce, Claire. It's the only way. We need to end this before it completely destroys us." Her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resignation as she looked back at me. "If that's what you think is best, then fine. We'll get a divorce." For a few moments we sat in silence, the enormity of our decision sinking in. Our marriage was over, and there was no way to go back. Now all that was left was figuring out how to move forward in a way that wouldn't tear our daughters apart. "We'll have to tell the girls," I finally said. "We need to find the best way to explain it to them." Claire nodded solemnly. "We'll tell them together. They need to hear it from both of us. And we have to make sure they know this isn't their fault," I added. "That we both love them and will always be there for them." "Agreed," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. As I looked at the woman I once loved so deeply, I felt a deep, aching loss. Our marriage was ending, and so was the life we had built together. But in that painful moment, I knew it was the right choice. It was the only way to give our daughters a chance at a happy, stable life, even if it meant tearing our own apart. The next few weeks would be some of the hardest of my life, but I knew I had to stay strong for Ava and Lily. They needed me now more than ever, and I couldn't let them down. No matter what happened between Claire and me, I would always be their father, and I would do whatever it took to keep them safe and happy. The following morning, the weight of our decision to divorce was thick in the air. Claire and I went through the motions of our routine, but there was a palpable tension between us. After we got the girls off to school, we sat down in the living room to start discussing the logistics of separating. Claire, we need to talk about custody. I began, keeping my voice as steady as I could. The girls need stability, and we have to figure out what's best for them. Claire leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. Well, obviously they'll stay with me. I have a stable job and can provide for them. What do you have to offer, Luke? You're just a stay-at-home dad. Her words hit hard, but I tried to stay calm. I may not have a job, but I've been the one raising them. I'm the one who's always here, taking care of their needs. Oh, so that makes you the more suitable parent? She scoffed. Luke, they need more than just a caregiver. They need financial security, and I'm the one who can give them that. They need their father, too, I insisted. They need the stability of someone who's always been there for them. Claire shook her head. You're living in a dream world, Luke. The court will side with me. I'm the one with the job, the one who can support them. You're just here, doing nothing. Doing nothing? I echoed, my voice thick with disbelief. Claire, I gave up my career to care for this family and support your career. Doesn't that mean anything? It doesn't, she shot back coldly. Do you think the court cares that you quit your job? They'll see you as an unemployed man without the means to support his kids. Her words cut deep, and I could feel my resolve wavering. She wasn't wrong about her financial advantage, but the thought of losing my daughters, of not being there for them every day, was unbearable. Claire, we can't tear them apart like this, I pleaded, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to find a way to share custody. They need both of us. Luke, stop being so naive, she said, her voice icy. This isn't about what's fair. It's about what's best for them. And right now, that's me. Her words hit like a dagger, each one twisting deeper. I wanted to fight for my daughters, but my confidence was slipping. Claire saw my hesitation and softened her tone. A calculated move. Look, Luke, she said, her tone almost gentle. We don't have to make this ugly. Maybe we don't even have to rush into a divorce. We could try counseling. See if we can fix things for the girls' sake. I studied her face, searching for sincerity. I knew she was manipulating me, but her words tugged at my own fears and hopes. I wanted to believe we could work this out, that maybe we could still be a family. Counseling? I repeated, unsure. Yes, she said, leaning in as if she'd reeled me in. We could work through this. For the girls, they deserve a chance to have a whole family. My mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. I wanted to protect my daughters, to give them the stability they needed. But I knew, deep down, that Claire and I were broken in ways that might never heal. Could counseling really mend this? Or was she just stalling, trying to break me down? Claire, I don't know, I admitted, my voice unsteady. I'm not sure this can be fixed. Of course it can, she said firmly. We owe it to our daughters to try. Don't you at least want to try, Luke? I looked at her, at the woman I once loved beyond measure. Despite everything, a part of me still wanted to believe. I wanted to believe that somehow we could make this work, that we could find our way back to each other. Finally, I whispered, okay, we'll try counseling. But if it doesn't help, we have to do what's best for the girls. Claire nodded, a small smile crossing her face. Of course, Luke, we'll do whatever it takes. As she walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a mistake. My gut told me that her sudden eagerness for counseling was yet another way for her to steer the situation, another way to keep me under her thumb. But for the sake of my daughters, I had to try. I owed them that much, even if it felt like I was putting everything on the line. We started counseling the following week. Our therapist, Dr. Bennett, was a kind woman with a calm and gentle presence. Her office was cozy, filled with plush chairs and warm lighting, the kind of space meant to ease you into sharing what's hard to say. Claire and I sat together on a soft couch, but the closeness felt uncomfortable, forced. Dr. Bennett began by asking us to explain why we were there and what we hoped to achieve. Claire spoke first, her voice steady and confident. "We want to save our marriage for our daughter's sake," she said. "They deserve a stable, happy home, and we owe it to them to work through our issues." I nodded along, but inside, I felt hollow. I wanted to save our marriage, too, but the lies and betrayal left a gaping wound in my heart. I didn't know if that rift could ever be healed. As the sessions continued, we dug into our feelings, frustrations, and what we hoped the future might hold. Claire spoke with ease, sounding like a misunderstood wife just trying to find her way back to her family. Meanwhile, I struggled to get my words out, the weight of her infidelity pressing down with every session. Dr. Bennett encouraged us to be open, but every time I looked at Claire, all I saw was her betrayal. The flirty texts, the deception. All of it was a constant reminder that the woman I trusted wasn't who I thought she was. At home, things remained tense yet civil. We went through the routines, trying to show a united front for the girls, but the emptiness inside me only grew. Each day, I felt more like a stranger in my own home, disconnected from the woman I had once loved so deeply. One night, after an especially draining counseling session, I found myself alone in the living room, staring at the family photos on the wall. Each picture was a testament to the life we had built together, a life that now felt like nothing but a lie. Claire walked in and sat beside me, her presence a sharp contrast to the warmth and love captured in those images. "Luke, are you okay?" she asked, her voice softened with concern. I sighed, not looking at her. "I don't know, Claire. I don't know if I can do this." She reached out, taking my hand, a touch that felt both familiar and foreign. "We have to try, Luke. The girls need us." I pulled my hand back, feeling it would betray my true feelings if I let her hold on. "I'm trying, but it's hard. Every time I look at you, all I see is the lies, the betrayal. It's a weight I can't seem to lift." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry, Luke. I know I hurt you, and I regret it every day. But we can get through this. We have to." I stood up, needing some distance between us. "I don't know if I can, Claire. I don't know if we can ever get back to what we had." She stood too, her expression a mixture of desperation and determination. "We can, Luke. We just have to keep trying. Please, don't give up on us." Her words lingered, a plea for a future that felt more and more like a fading dream. I wanted to believe her, to believe we could find our way back. But the chasm inside me was a reminder of the hurt, a wound that refused to heal. As the weeks slipped into months, the counseling sessions continued. We made some progress here and there, addressing our issues and attempting to rebuild trust. But for every small step forward, there were moments of doubt and despair. That deep divide in my heart was always there, reminding me how impossible it felt to truly bridge the distance between us. One night, after the girls were asleep, I found myself standing alone on the porch, staring out into the night. The weight of everything pressed down on me, and I felt like I was being crushed under it all. Claire joined me, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Luke, what's going on?" she asked softly. I turned to her, barely able to speak. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Claire. I feel like I'm losing myself. I don't even know who I am or what I'm supposed to do." She stepped closer, searching my face. "You're the man I love. You're the father of our children. We can get through this. We have to." I shook my head, the emptiness inside me growing. "I don't know if I can find my way back to you, Claire. The pain, the betrayal. It's too much." Tears ran down her face, but she didn't look away. "Please, Luke, don't give up on us. Don't give up on our family." In that moment, it became clear to me that no matter how much I wanted to believe in a future for us, the divide was too vast. The trust was gone, and without it, there was nothing to rebuild on. Looking into her tear-filled eyes, I knew it was time to make a final choice. For the sake of my own sanity and for the well-being of our daughters, I had to face the painful truth. Reconciliation was impossible. The chasm between us was simply too deep, and I needed to let go. Despite my doubts, Claire and I continued attending counseling and maintained appearances for the girls' sake. Our attempts at reconciliation became a series of motions we went through with a sense of routine, each session blending into the next. We sat together, side by side in front of the therapist, like strangers watching a show on TV, barely even seeing what was in front of us. The girls were asleep, and Claire was probably already upstairs in bed. I sat alone in the silence of the living room, feeling an emptiness settle deep within me, a sense of drifting without direction. My phone buzzed suddenly, breaking the stillness. It was a message from Mark, an old friend I hadn't seen in months. "Hey Luke, it's been too long. Want to grab a drink tonight? Let's catch up and talk about anything but work and family drama." I glanced upstairs, hesitating. Then I made up my mind. I needed an escape from the suffocating atmosphere at home. I needed a breath of fresh air. "Sure, Mark, sounds great. Meet you at O'Malley's in an hour." "Perfect, see you there." I headed upstairs to let Claire know. She looked up from her book as I entered, her expression expectant. "Where are you going?" "Out with Mark for a drink," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "I need some air, Claire. I just need a break to clear my head." She nodded slowly, her expression hard to read. "Okay, Luke. Just don't stay out too late." I grabbed my lookie and keys, feeling a strange mix of relief and guilt as I walked out the door. Driving to the bar, I questioned whether I was making the right choice. But deep down, I knew I needed this. I needed to find myself again, away from the chaos and confusion of a marriage that was falling apart. O'Malley's was a familiar spot, a place where Mark and I had shared many laughs over the years. When I walked in, I spotted him at a corner table with 2 beers waiting. "Luke, it's good to see you, man," Mark greeted me, his handshake firm. "You look like you could use this." I laughed, a genuine laugh that felt almost unfamiliar. "You have no idea." We fell into easy conversation, talking about work, old memories, and steering clear of the turmoil I was facing at home. It was a much-needed distraction, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to normalcy. As the evening went on, the bar filled with people and the hum of conversation grew louder. Mark and I were in the middle of reminiscing about an old game we used to play when 2 women approached our table. They were both attractive, dressed casually yet stylishly. One, a brunette with sparkling blue eyes, smiled. "Mind if we join you?" she asked. Mark grinned, gesturing to the empty chairs. "Not at all. I'm Mark, and this is my friend Luke." "I'm Aaron," said the brunette, sliding into the chair next to Mark. "And this is my friend Rachel." Rachel, a blonde with a warm smile, took the seat next to me. "Nice to meet you both." We exchanged introductions, and conversation flowed naturally. Aaron and Rachel were easy to talk to, their presence offering a welcome break from the heavy thoughts that had been weighing on me. As the evening wore on, I relaxed, finding myself genuinely enjoying the company and laughter. Rachel and I discovered we both loved hiking and spent much of the night swapping stories about trails and adventures. At one point, Rachel leaned closer. "So, Luke, what brings you out tonight?" I hesitated, not wanting to share the complexities of my unraveling marriage. "Just needed a break," I said simply. "It's been a tough few months." She nodded sympathetically. "Sometimes you just need to step back for a bit. Clear your head." "Exactly," I said, grateful for her understanding. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of camaraderie with these new acquaintances. It was a reminder that there was still life outside the confines of my troubled marriage, a world where laughter and connection were still possible. Eventually, Mark checked his watch and sighed. "Hate to be responsible here, but I've got an early meeting Markero." "Luke, ready to head out?" I nodded reluctantly, not quite ready to leave this bubble of normalcy. "Yeah, I suppose we should." We exchanged numbers with Aaron and Rachel, promising to meet up again sometime. As Mark and I left the bar, I felt a complicated mix of gratitude and sadness. The evening had been a welcome escape, but the reality of my situation crept back in, reminding me of the decisions I faced. Driving home, I knew what I had to do. This charade of reconciliation was just that, a facade. The deep divide in my heart couldn't be bridged. For my own sanity and for the girls, it was time to let go and move forward. When I got home, Claire was waiting, her expression tense. "How was your night?" "It was good," I replied, meeting her gaze. "Claire, we need to talk Marcaro. We need to make some decisions." She looked at me, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "All right, Luke, we'll talk." As I lay in bed that night, I felt a newfound sense of resolve. It was time to face whatever the future held and to rebuild my life from the ground up. The next morning, my decision to divorce Claire was solidified, but something darker brewed inside me. An urge for her to feel the same pain she'd inflicted on me. I wanted her to understand the depth of betrayal and hurt she'd caused. I picked up my phone and messaged Rachel, the blonde from the bar. "Hey, Rachel. It was great meeting you last night. Want to grab dinner tonight?" Her response was quick and enthusiastic. "I'd love to, Luke. How about 7 p.m. at Luigi's?" "Perfect. See you then." The day passed slowly as I went through the motions. Errands, chores, anything to keep busy. Claire and I barely spoke, the tension in the house growing thicker by the hour. The girls, thankfully, were at school, shielded from the brewing storm between us. As the evening drew near, I dressed carefully, wanting to look my best for Rachel. When I told Claire I was heading out, I didn't bother to explain. She barely looked up, too engrossed in her phone to care. At Luigi's, Rachel greeted me with a warm smile. She looked stunning, her blonde hair falling softly over her shoulders. We talked and laughed throughout dinner, the conversation easy and light. For a few hours, I was able to set aside the turmoil at home and just enjoy the company of someone who seemed genuinely interested in me. The evening was a reprieve, a reminder that, despite everything, life went on outside of my broken marriage. After dinner, Rachel and I decided to take a walk along the river. The night was cool and clear, city lights shimmering on the water. As we strolled side by side, she took my hand, her touch sending a thrill through me. "I really enjoyed tonight, Luke," she said softly, looking up at me with those warm, inviting eyes. "Me too, Rachel," I replied, my voice low. "I needed this." She stepped closer, her body pressing against mine. "Maybe we can continue this somewhere more private?" I didn't hesitate. "I'd like that." We went back to her apartment, a cozy place with modern decor that felt both comfortable and inviting. The moment we walked in, the atmosphere shifted. The tension between us was electric. Rachel led me to the couch, and we sank into the cushions, our lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The night blurred into a desperate mix of desire and release. As we made our way to her bedroom, shedding clothes and all inhibitions, I let myself get lost in the moment. The feel of her skin, the taste of her lips, everything seemed to pull me away from thoughts of Claire, the betrayal, and the looming divorce. For those few hours, there was only Rachel and the raw, urgent need to escape the pain. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, the room dimly lit by the city lights spilling in through the window. Rachel rested her head on my chest, her breathing steady and peaceful. "Luke, are you okay?" she asked softly, tracing light patterns on my skin with her fingers. I sighed, the weight of reality creeping back in. "I'm not sure," I replied honestly. "But tonight was what I needed." "Stay with me," she murmured, her fingers stilling. I knew I should go home, but the thought of facing Claire, pretending for one more night, was unbearable. "All right," I agreed, my voice barely above a whisper. As I drifted off to sleep beside Rachel, I felt a complex mix of satisfaction and guilt. I had stepped outside the bounds of my crumbling marriage, taken the revenge I thought I wanted. Yet the emptiness in my heart was still there, darker and deeper than before. Marcaro, I would have to face the consequences. But for now, I allowed myself the temporary solace of Rachel's embrace. I didn't go home that night, And when I woke up in Rachel's bed the next morning, I knew there was no turning back. The final pieces of my old life were slipping away, and it was time to confront the new reality I had set in motion. The morning light filtered softly through Rachel's curtains. For a moment, I allowed myself to savor the warmth of her embrace, but reality quickly set in. I had to go home and face Claire. I needed to tell her the truth about last night. I dressed quietly, trying not to wake Rachel, and slipped out of her apartment. My mind raced on the drive home, filled with thoughts of how to approach the conversation. I knew it would be ugly, but it was time to end the pretending. When I walked through the front door, Claire was in the kitchen, sipping her morning coffee. She looked up, surprised to see me. "Where were you last night?" she demanded, her tone accusatory. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was coming. "We need to talk, Claire." Her eyes narrowed. "What's going on, Luke?" "I wasn't just out with Mark last night," I said, my voice unwavering. "I met someone, and I spent the night with her." For a moment, Claire just stared at me, her expression frozen in shock. Then her face twisted with anger. "You did what?" "I slept with someone else," I repeated, my voice steady. "Just like you did with Ryan." "You bastard," she spat, standing up so quickly that her chair tipped over. "How could you? After everything we've been through, how could I?" I echoed, anger bubbling up inside me. "How could you, Claire? You started this. You were the one who betrayed me first." Her eyes blazed with fury. "That was different. I was lonely and frustrated. But you did this just to hurt me." "I did it because I wanted you to feel the same pain," I shot back. "I wanted you to understand what it feels like to be betrayed by the person you love." We stood there, glaring at each other in silence, the air thick with tension. The girls were still asleep, blissfully unaware of the storm raging between their parents. "Luke, I can't believe you would stoop so low," Claire said, her voice trembling with anger. "You're no better than I am." "Maybe not," I admitted. "But now you know how it feels." She shook her head, tears spilling down her face. "I thought we were trying to work things out. I thought we were trying to save our marriage." "Our marriage is already broken," I said, my voice cracking. "We're fooling ourselves if we think we can fix it." Claire slumped back into a chair, her anger dissolving into sorrow. "So what now, Luke? What do we do?" I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling heavily on me. "We get a divorce, Claire. It's the only way. We can't keep living like this. It's not fair to us, and it's not fair to the girls." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with resignation and sadness. "You're right. We can't keep pretending. It's time to let go." We sat there in silence, letting the reality of our decision sink in. Our marriage was over, and there was no turning back. The only thing left was to figure out how to move forward and protect our daughters from the fallout of our broken relationship. "We'll tell the girls together," Claire said finally, her voice barely audible. "They need to hear it from both of us." "Agreed," I said, feeling a sense of relief mingled with sadness. "We'll tell them, and we'll make sure they know we both love them and will always be there for them." As I walked out of the kitchen, leaving Claire to her thoughts, I felt an unusual sense of clarity. The confrontation had been painful, but it was also freeing. The truth was out, and the path ahead was clear. It was time to face whatever the future held and begin the process of healing and rebuilding my life. The decision to divorce marked only the beginning of a long and grueling journey. Claire and I agreed to approach the separation amicably for the sake of Ava and Lily, but the actual process of untangling our lives was far more difficult than we'd imagined. The divorce proceedings stretched over months, bogged down by endless legal paperwork and emotional strain. We had to negotiate every shared piece of our life: the house, finances, custody arrangements. Each decision feeling like a small heartbreak. Claire was set on fighting for primary custody, highlighting her stable job and financial independence. But I was equally resolute, knowing how much the girls depended on my daily care and presence. I knew that if I was going to provide for them fully, I needed to restart my career. Returning to work after such a long hiatus was intimidating, and I worried about my prospects. Thankfully, a friend from college put in a good word for me, and I managed to land a position at a local engineering firm. It was a modest beginning, but it was a fresh start nonetheless. Balancing my new job with the ongoing divorce was exhausting. The girls could sense the tension, and I did everything I could to protect them from the worst of it. I made sure they stayed focused on their schoolwork and kept up with their favorite activities, doing my best to preserve some normalcy. Our weekends together became a sanctuary from the chaos, filled with hikes, movie nights, and long talks about their dreams and worries. The job became a source of stability and strength for me. I threw myself into the challenging work, determined to build a career that would give my daughters the security they deserved. My days became a balancing act of late nights at the office and early mornings with Ava and Lily, requiring every bit of energy I could muster. As time went on, the custody battle intensified. Claire and I endured countless court hearings and mediation sessions, each one more draining than the last. Our lawyers made strong cases for each of us, but ultimately the decision rested with the judge. I presented my case as thoroughly as I could, emphasizing my role as their primary caregiver and the close bond one shared with Ava and Lily. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor, granting me primary custody, with Claire given regular visitation rights. It was a bittersweet victory. I knew it hurt Claire deeply to lose the daily presence of our daughters, but I also knew that this arrangement was what was best for their stability and well-being. The day our divorce was finalized, I felt both a sense of relief and a profound sadness. Claire and I exchanged weary, resigned looks across the courtroom. No accusations, no anger, just the quiet acceptance that our marriage had ended. Back home, I sat the girls down to explain the new arrangement as gently as I could. They'd already sensed the changes, and I reassured them that both their mother and I loved them and would always be there for them. Ava and Lily showed a strength I hadn't anticipated. They hugged me tightly, and together, we cried, mourning the family structure we'd known. In the months that followed, we settled into a new rhythm. I worked hard, earned promotions, and found satisfaction in a career that gave me the means to provide security and stability for my daughters. Claire remained involved in their lives, and together we focused on co-parenting, putting aside our personal differences for Ava and Lily's sake. Looking back, I saw how far we had come. The betrayal, the anger, the pain, all part of our past, but no longer defining our future. I had found a way to rebuild my life and create a stable, loving environment for Ava and Lily. I knew the road ahead would still bring challenges, but I was confident that we could face them together. One evening, as I stood on the porch watching my daughters play in the yard, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. Our family looked different now, but it was filled with love and hope. And that, more than anything, was what truly mattered.